I'm Caroline Wolf. Welcome everybody to the first post-window LCT webinar. And I want to introduce some new team members. Cheryl Miller is joining us today, and Kennedy Nail is, I don't see her in here yet, but she is joining right now. And there's going to be some new friendly faces and new friendly voices that if you call the LCT hotline, you may get an email from them. That's who they are. So we want to welcome them to our LCT family. And we're going to go ahead and start our slides right now. Of course, as always, I'm going to give the summary of LCT funding, and then Patty's going to talk about the invoicing process. Brandi's going to talk about PIA and transition of service. Jenny's going to talk about next steps. So I'm really excited to say that 107 LCT libraries were funded in WAVE. Well, and that's administrative entities, that's not total libraries. In Wave 1 for 2022, it was a little over $1 million. So kudos to everybody who got their funding commitment decision letters. 13 applications are still in review for 2022. That doesn't mean you did something bad. It just means that they had extra questions for you. In some cases, a couple of you need to file window waivers. 3 applications are in final review, which means they will probably be in the next wave. 2 applications were certified out of window. Those are the ones that will need waiver requests. 1 application has a status of incomplete response, and that one is, I understand, is going to be submitted today, so that's a good thing. As always, please be aware of any communications you receive from USAC in asking you questions about your applications. That means that if you get those questions, they need more information from you, and it may be just a contract or a document that you need to provide. The sooner you get those submitted, the sooner your application will be ready for funding. So moving on to Patty and the invoicing process.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Patty Hollingsworth, and I'll be going over the invoicing process. This is the fun part where we get to talk about getting your E-rate money back for your library. Some libraries, you get discounted monthly bills where your E-rate discounts are already applied monthly. This is called SPI billing, and it stands for Service Provider Invoice, and it's where your vendor invoices USAC. If your library receives discounted bills, you'll still want to review your bills to verify that your discounts are accurate. But for today's presentation, we'll be going over an upcoming deadline that applies to libraries who pay their E-rate services in full each month. So for example, if your internet bill is paid in full each month, then you will file a BEAR to USAC to request your E-rate reimbursement. BEAR stands for Billed Entity Applicant Reimbursement. And this BEAR reimbursement is filed in order to request your reimbursement from USAC. It's for the discount amount on the cost of eligible services that the library has received and paid for in full. So this BEAR reimbursement is typically filed at the end of the funding year, but it can be filed quarterly or monthly after your invoices have been paid. But the keywords here to remember are eligible, received, and paid in full. So when you're reviewing your invoices, if you have any questions on these keywords, like whether a charge is eligible or not, you can reach out to anyone on our LC team, and we would be happy to help you. But an example of filing your annual BEAR would be totaling the charges for all 12 months then confirming that this amount was paid in full. The 12 months are going to be for the period beginning July 1st of 2021. So in our example, if you paid a total of $1,000 for the year for internet service and you have an 80% E-rate discount, that would mean that your bear reimbursement would be for $800 or 80% of what you paid. So now on the E-rate program rules, it's that all bear invoices must be submitted to USAC no later than 120 days after the last date of service or 120 days after the date of your Form 486 notification letter, whichever is later. So what this means is generally the deadline to file, to invoice or file your bear is October 28th. And that's 120 days after June 30th, which is the end of the E-rate year. If your library has Category 2 equipment purchases, this would be considered non-recurring service, then your bear invoice deadline is January 28th. When filing your bears for reimbursement, you'll be filing this under USAC's EPC1 portal. So if you haven't filed a bear in this past year, you'll want to log in to the EPC portal just to verify that you have access to the bear system through this portal. So in summary, now is the time to gather all of your monthly invoices and proof of payments. And for the 12 months beginning July 1st of 2021, save all of your monthly invoices and payments that are used to calculate the bear. And if you should have any questions on those calculations, again, feel free to reach out to the LCT team. Yes, and this slide again shows that the 12 months that are covered for this funding year began July 1st of 2021 and goes through June 30th of 2022.
Thank you, Patty. For those of you that have not been funded at this point in the first or second wave, there's a chance that you have pending or will receive PIA review inquiries. PIA is the Program Integrity Assurance Review, and that is just something that USAC does if they have questions on your application. Like Caroline said, it could be that they want to see a copy of your contract. Maybe they want to, I think the most common is that they want to validate the amount of funding you're requesting. One that we've been seeing here a few times is that they're trying to validate NSLP data for the library, which is actually not something that you handle. Since your discount percentage is based on the school district that you're associated with, that is actually something that you don't have to provide to USAC. We have a canned response that can be used. So if you get that kind of question, just reach out to the LCT team. With any review inquiry, just reach out to us. We can help you come up with a response. You have, when you receive the inquiry, it's a 15-day window to respond. There is the option to file for an extension if necessary. That'll give you an additional 7 days, but you'll want to make sure that you are responsive to USAC. The quicker you respond, the faster your application is going to get funded. If you haven't received any PIA review inquiries, there's nothing to worry about. It just means there's not any additional information that USAC needs. Now we're going to talk about transition of services. So if you are, this could mean two different things. If you are transitioning to a new internet service provider, you want to make sure that you notify the provider when you've been funded, the 486 has been filed. That has to be done before you elect SPI billing with your provider. But you'll want to make sure that everything is on target to begin at the beginning of the funding year, which is July 1st of 2022. You're going to want to contact the outgoing provider after the new services begin, but you also want to make sure you're giving notice. If you have specific contract requirements that say you must give 30 to 60 days notice, and I've even seen longer than that, you'll want to make sure you reach out ahead of time to let them know that you are transitioning to a new provider, and follow whatever process is required in your contract. But after services have begun, you want to reach out again to say, please terminate the services as per our request so that you're not being double billed. The other scenario with transitioning services could be that you are upgrading your bandwidth with your existing provider. In this case, you're going to want to pay close attention to your invoicing. Sometimes we see where you get 6 months through the year and they have not upgraded your bandwidth, nobody realized, and we don't want that to be the case. So pay very close attention to that first bill just to make sure that they've upgraded your bandwidth, you're being charged as per your contract or month-to-month agreement. We want to make sure that the libraries aren't being overbilled for their services. And Ginny is going to talk about some next steps.
I am fairly certain, Brandi, that they don't want to be overbilled as well. So yeah, that's pretty important. Just take a quick look at your bills at the beginning of the year just to make sure. Thank you, Brandi. I am Ginnie Harwood, and I'm going to talk about next steps. In particular, the Children's Internet Protection Act requirements. So once you're funded, and you are needing to file a Form 486, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you want to make sure that the library is in compliance with these 3 items regarding SIPA. You've got to have an internet safety policy, which is something that you should adopt and enforce. And it is a technology protection measure for any of your patrons on to graphic depictions of inappropriate content. So that's your technology protection measure. Your internet safety policy is what codifies that, so that what you're doing to protect people from inappropriate material. So just making sure that you have an internet safety policy, that it does address what technology protection is in use and enforced, and then that you have held, number 3, a public notice or a board meeting of some sort, or a city council meeting, that you've held that you've notified the public of it, and that you held the meeting and you addressed both of these, both the internet safety policy and what technology protection measure is being done at the library. It sounds a little daunting, but it's really something you can do once, unless something changes, a large change takes place, but it is something you'll just need to do one time, and you can utilize all of these documents for SIPA, unless, like I said, there's a major change in any of these. So this is pretty important. If you've been filing E-rate for multiple years, then you should have already had SIPA in check and are prepared at any point in time to provide this documentation. If you're not sure, if you don't know that you have the proof, then let us know and we can work with you to get that done. So the Form 486 is the application that you will need to file within 120 days of your funding commitment decision letter. And that's what Brandi was talking about. It's the 120 days once that FCDL is issued to you. So we have 107 of you who have already been funded. So now's the time to make sure you're in SIPA compliance and go ahead and certify your Form 486. The purpose of this application is to notify USAC that services will start on July 1st. Now, if you're funded after July 1st, then you'll notify them that they started on July 1st. And then your 120 days starts at that point, if after July 1st. It also then certifies your compliance with SIPA. So it's important just to make sure you've checked all those boxes and know, yep, I'm certified, I've got everything in place. So once we get an FCDL or a funding commitment decision letter, we will prepare the Form 486 for you and send you a copy of both the FCDL and the draft Form 486 with instructions on how to certify that application. Just be sure you review those documents carefully, and especially the FCDL, the funding commitment decision letter, because that's going to outline what was funded from your Form 471 that was certified. And we just want to make sure that if there are any changes needed, that we do that pretty quickly, which can still be done within 60 days of that FCDL. And what you'll do, the way you certify the 486 is to log into Epic, just like you do with the 471 and all the other applications, and then you'll certify it in there. Okay, moving into the Emergency Connectivity Fund. Several of you attend our webinars regularly, so you've probably heard me talk about ECF, or the Emergency Connectivity Fund, in the past. So we've already had 2 filing windows for this fund from the FCC. It is a completely separate fund from E-rate. It is flowing from the FCC, but it's flowing out of the Department of Treasury versus E-rate that flows from the Universal Service Fund. So 2 completely separate programs under the FCC. It is funding, in particular, off-campus connected devices and service for patrons who do not otherwise have an adequate device for home use. Okay, so it's off campus, off the library campus, for patrons who do not have a device already that they can use or service that they can use at home. So a quick overview of the first 2 windows. ECF window 1, it was over the summer, and it was by far the largest one so far. It closed August 13th, and $5.13 billion was requested out of the $7.17 billion that was available in the whole fund. Window 2, substantially smaller. It closed October 13th, and it totaled $1.2 billion in requests. So now we still have a little bit of money left over, and they've got to spend it. So we're looking at window 3, which opened today, and it will close on May 13th. All these 13s, and it's Friday the 13th. So hopefully that's not an omen. Hopefully everybody gets what they need. But if you're interested in talking to any of us about this program, it is something that we have been filing applications for our clients on and been pretty successful with. So if you've got questions, you want to talk to us about, what it would cost, it is a separate program from LCT. So we can talk to you about what that fee would be if you were interested in us helping you do that, or if you just wanted some information, you can let us know as well. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. So you would want to let us know something pretty soon, preferably by the middle to end of next week would be great. So that is all I have. Caroline, do you want to take it from here?
Thanks, Jenny. I have a few things to add. About the Form 486, your deadline, if you were funded in that first wave, if you're funded before July 1st, your deadline is going to be October 29th. It's going to be 120 days after July 1st. If you're funded after July 1st, then it's going to be 120 days after you've received your funding. And some service providers, in order to discount your bills, want you to fill out a grid. AT&T is one of them. So if you want to do the SPY billing process and you are using AT&T, you need to make sure you fill out that grid and send it to them, or they will not discount your bill. Do not end up in October asking about discounted bills because they won't do it. We've had a couple of people who were burned by that, and we want to make sure that you can that you've got the full opportunity to get what you need. If you want SPY billing, verify that your service provider doesn't require you to submit a separate form to elect for SPY billing. Also, you need to check your bills every month and just make sure that if you were expecting SPY billing, that the service provider is putting that on your bills, because it's sometimes there's communication, it falls down and they don't do it. The other thing about it was about transitional services. Sometimes you may have to submit that transitional service cutoff if you are cutting off services from a different service provider, or even if you are upgrading to a different kind of service. Say you're currently using a DSL service and you're going to switch to fiber, you may need to submit that disconnect request in writing. In fact, I recommend it. Send them an email, make sure that you have it documented, because sometimes people get billed after they've asked service providers to cut it off, and you want to have a record that you did submit that request. So just a few little pointers to maybe help you in that process. Again, if you need anything, have any questions about this, please reach out to us on our hotline at 516-801-7820 or at lct@eratecentral.com. Do we have any questions? We're looking in the chat. Kyle has put something about Spectrum. Spectrum does have one of those grids or email addresses that you can submit a request to do SPY billing. So make sure that if that's one of your service providers, that you let them know.
Well, specifically for Spectrum, they don't necessarily have a grid, but you will need to email them at a specific email address to request the SPY invoicing to happen. I know a number of libraries who have reached out to their local Spectrum representative, and SPY billing was not implemented after doing that, but by going through the DLGSP department, and I'll put their email in the chat here. They can set up your SPY billing if you have Spectrum services.
Thanks, Kyle. Does anybody?
One other thing is on this page we're looking at, there's some online resources which both pertain to SIPA. So if I went fast and you weren't sure exactly what you need to do for that, these are some good resource web pages as well for you.
And thank you for saying that, Ginny, because it reminded me of the one more thing that I wanted to say about the 486. Sometimes when people are certifying the Form 486, it can be confusing because it asks you, what kind of SIPA certification are you going to make? Are you currently SIPA compliant? Are you trying to become compliant, or other things? If you are just applying for E-rate services for the very first time, this is your first year ever applying, or you haven't ever been funded for internet discounts or C2 discounts, then you can have a year of grace period to become compliant with SIPA. Anyone else should be compliant. And if you don't know if you're compliant, the state library has some great resources for you to check. Henry is a great resource for that. Henry Stokes is a great contact, and he has some good materials and can help you determine if you're compliant or not. But if you've been participating in E-rate or have participated before, you should be compliant and you should certify as such on your 486. If you can't certify as such, then please talk to us and we'll talk about what your options are and how you can remedy that situation. Any questions at all, please let us know. So Ed, yes, we'll send you a draft Form 486 and instructions on how to certify it. We usually send some screenshot pictures that show which boxes to check. So hopefully that will be helpful. If you do have any questions, of course, feel free to give us a call or send us an email, and we'll help make sure that you're putting the right information in the form. What will happen is if you don't certify that you're compliant, you're going to get some outreach from USAC, and that can be scary. So we don't want you to be scared. It's not fun. Any other questions? Okay, well, hearing none, seeing none, everyone have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
Thank you.